Okay, so we are live now. I'd like to welcome everybody to the December 12th Committee of Adjustment meeting. And both our chair and deputy or vice chair were not able to be with us today. So I'm going to ask the committee for a motion to appoint Jim Russell as the acting chair for the day. Could have a mover, Dave Hellwig. I'll make the motion. And second by Steve Beasley. All in favor? Thank you. And things over to you.
I have been chosen.
You've been chosen.
This has been chosen.
Oh, here's Gavin.
Okay. Gavin. Gavin did it.
You want to take over as chair, Gavin, or you want?
Doesn't matter, Jim can handle it. We already have.
Okay, I got the motion, so we'll get started. Please bear with me, I do have a bit of a cold as well, so I'll try to do that. I'll try not to make it here. Okay, call to order, call the meeting to order. It's 3 o'clock, so let's get on to the declaration of community interest. Anybody have any here on the committee? Yes, so good, the approval of minutes for the meeting for October 21st, or October 31st, 2024. Before moving on with the applications, we need to approve the minutes of the Committee of Adjustment meeting of October 31st, 2024. Does anybody have any corrections?
I'll make a motion.
Going to make a motion to accept?
I'll
Okay,
second.
seconder. Okay. So motion is carried. So next is applications for a minor variance A-03-2024. Our next order of business today will be considered minor variance application A-04-2024 for property owned by 1684677 Ontario Limited. The address is 405 Victoria Avenue. The purpose of this minor variance is to seek relief from the following development standards under comprehensive zoning bylaw 25 of 2024. 1. Relief of the section 5.3D of the reduction of minimum interior side yard width from 3.0 meters to 1.2 meters.
Could you speak a little louder, please?
Speak louder?
Clearly.
Okay. Hopefully I can do a little louder. Public notice, is that a little better? You hear that? Okay. I want to make sure everybody can hear me, so I'll be as loud as I can. Public notice, the Planning Act requires a public meeting be held in order to allow the committee to receive input from the general public from the proposed variance. Notices of this meeting have been posted and circulated to owners in the areas affected as well as agencies. Staff report, planner is Jared Preston, so the staff report will be provided by Mr. Jared Preston. Planner of the village of Point Edward. Jared, can you please proceed?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Jared Preston. I'm a planner for the County of Lambton, and I provide planning services to the village of Point Edward. Today, I'm going to do just a brief presentation on the proposal of 405 Victoria Avenue. I'm just going to wait for the presentation.
Yeah, let's take it a second here. All right, I'm gonna have to put it in my email. There we are.
Okay, so the applicant is Robert Orbeck. The ownership number is 1684677 Ontario Ltd. So the applicant is seeking a relief from the zoning bylaw to reduce the minimum side yard width from the required 3 meters for semi-detached dwellings to 1.2 meters to tear down an existing semi on the property existing single and construct a new semi-detached dwelling on the property. So the first figure is just showing the existing single detached dwelling on the property.
Can you go back one page? I think it had the wrong one.
Showing Alexandra Avenue. And you're showing, yes, Alexandra Avenue.
Okay, it's 405 Victoria.
Yeah.
This is the existing single on the property. This is the photo showing the detached garage on the property. This is showing a neighboring property to the west. And this is showing neighboring property to the east. This is a site location and zoning of the property, an aerial photo showing 405 Victoria Avenue. Also zoned R1. And this is the minor variance proposal showing the two proposed units and the 1.2 meter side yard setback highlighted in bold. Upon the application materials received by planning staff have found that this variance is consistent with all applicable policies, the Planning Act, PPS, County Official Plan, Point Edward Official Plan, and Point Edward Zoning Bylaw. We found that reducing a side yard setback to 1.2 for a semi-detached dwelling over neighborhood is considered appropriate. We feel that based on the information we received, that the side yard width reduction will have little impact to side and rear yard access to the property. Upon recommendation, planning staff recommends that minor variance application A04 2024 at 405 Victoria Avenue should be approved with the following conditions. That building code requirements will be reviewed at permit issuance and separate services shall be provided to each unit. And the second recommendation is that curb cut approval for both driveway accesses will need to be signed off by the Village of Point Edward prior to the issuance of building permit for the proposed semi. Thank you for your time.
Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this
Yes.
application?
Sorry,
Sorry?
you should give the opportunity to ask your questions.
Oh, sorry, I did. There. Are there any questions from the committee members or those present for Mr. Preston?
Yes, I have one. Unless I missed it in the report, what is the proposed lot coverage? The percentage,
It's 33%.
33%,
Yeah, and it's
and the maximum is 35.
35, so they're within lot coverage.
Yeah, in case we're close to the maximum on that. And as mentioned before, I haven't had the benefit of seeing any elevations or plans. Do we know what the proposed height of this property is going to be?
So based on the chart on the site plan drawing in front of you, the proposed height is 7.25 meters. And the maximum required for a semi is 9 meters.
Maximum allowed.
Maximum allowed, 9 meters. Right now, with confirming with the designers, it is proposed as a 1-story dwelling. And the applicant could have the flexibility to go up to 2 stories. If they want.
You say it's gonna be a 1-story right
Yes.
now? And how many rooms would that have in the home?
Again, that is information. In terms of bedrooms, planning has no control over that information. The owner is responsible for providing that information.
What's the maximum height of it as a 2-story?
It's the same thing, 9 meters.
9 meters.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Just one other one, and the 1.2 meter side yard, any impact of eaves or overhangs or anything that would go right up to the line?
So through the chair, in terms of those impacts, planning staff cannot comment on those. Unless we have, building department will go out, do their inspection, and then they'll send those comments back. If they have concerns about the 1.2, their building code overrides our zoning regulations.
Okay.
So just, you'll deliver on that comment, so the plot plan, we don't really know the size of the plot that's there. Whether it includes to the basement itself, or is it to the drip line, or where is it, like the signage?
Through the chair, planning cannot comment on any specific design features of the house as the owner hasn't provided.
But generally that setback, that 1.2 setback is from the foundation wall. Is that?
Yeah,
that's where it's
the
measured
foundation
from?
wall to the property line.
I think that's what.
So that's what it is, so the drip line, the overhang could be. Could
be on the
reduce
other
that signage. Could reduce that.
It would be pouring snow on my property and.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
His property.
That's what I'm asking. Yeah,
Bay windows and such would be restricted then?
that's my question.
That'll be up
Ba-
to Ontario Building Code. to decide.
Yeah, that, so if I may, the building code would determine about, the windows are part of the fire separation requirement between adjacent houses. So, and I don't know those regulations, the building inspectors would know that, but they would be the ones making the determinations about window allowances and that kind of thing. What this hearing is about is 1.2 meter separation between the lot line and the foundation wall. That's the measurement that's in question.
Now, it would be impossible to get a ladder up on that side in order to do any cleaning or any roof repairs. Like 1.2 meters is only this wide. In order to get a ladder up, recently we put a ladder up in my room. It took 8 feet just to get to the base of the ladder. You need another foot for people to walk by and access the ladder. So you need the 3 meters in that side yard.
On the two side.
Well, they're talking about 7.5 meters
Yeah,
for the
that's-
height of the
that's
house.
high, yeah.
That is hot.
22 feet.
That's
And
high.
you have at least a 16-inch overhang. Right, so you really don't have up to the roof, you don't have 1.2 meters, you have half of that.
Mhm. It's the ledge, straight up.
You want the question? You have a question? No. I have a question. When you're building these pieces of property, you're tearing down a building. And then you're putting up another building, then you're asking for a variance. And you're cutting in half almost the side variances. Shouldn't your design be designed for the size of the property when you're putting up a new piece of property
Agreed.
on that? Right. There. Right.
I mean,
Well, they're increasing the size of the house or the domicile. There. And it has a domicile on there that conform to the
Two domiciles now.
the requirements. Now you go with all the expense of hiring a contractor to put out the blueprints for a new home. Should he not be building that home according to the requirements without the variances? Because these variances they're gonna be eavesdrop to eavesdrop if you're looking at these variances almost now. And the gentleman here had a point. If you have to access the side, you haven't got any room to get up the sides. I don't even know how you can build it from the outside in without going on the neighbor's property to build it. There.
Correct.
So through the chair, again, planning staff, when we receive an application, we look at certain aspects of the zoning provisions. The R1 zone permits semi-detached dwellings
Yeah.
So we
within
cannot-
the requirement.
per the requirements. You're right. So we look at things, log coverage, height, setbacks. And we look at it on a site-by-site basis. But we also try to maintain consistency based on other similar developments as well. And per Ontario Building Code, they have allowed structures to be within 1.2 and other urban areas have as well. So building code will be able to determine whether the 1.2 will be safe or unsafe. And that will, and then they will let the owner know what they'll be able to do. They may not be able to go right to the 1.2.
Well, why even
Do
have
we want
bylaws if you're just
Ultra
gonna?
urban practices applied to Point Edward?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Do we want those type of ultra urban practices in Point Edward? Like, where we
We've got two. of them
cram
now
our
that
houses
aren't
close
sold.
together like that?
Okay. Through the chair, when I look through applications for, more residential intensification, I can't just look at it from a village point of view. I have to look at it from provincial, county, village as
Yeah,
well.
We're here to look at that village.
Yeah, and I understand your point. You guys have the right to look at it that way.
Mhm.
I have to make recommendations based off of the policies that are in front of me. So, like, you guys make really good points in terms of, what you guys want the village to look like as well, as I go by the policies, starting from the provincial, county, which provincial precedes county, county precedes village, village precedes Point Edward zoning bylaw. The applicant does have a right, even though the 3 meters is the required setback, they have the right to request the 1.2.
Yeah, I'm not denying the request, I'm just, we're arguing it.
Okay,
Well, they think you should deny the request.
okay, and I understand where you guys are coming from, I'm just trying to give you guys a clearer picture of what my process is. When I'm looking at making a recommendation. I'm also not just looking at the official plan for the village, I'm looking at the altogether, including the province.
Why didn't this applicant make his plan so that it fit within the rules of the village? Why does he need a variance? Why doesn't he just replan it?
So if I may, that's the committee's job today to
Yeah.
decide if they want him to do that or not.
Yeah.
He has the right to make the request.
Mhm.
The planner has a job to interpret policy and make his recommendation, and then ultimately the committee decides if they're gonna allow it to happen or not.
So if there, our comments are directed at the committee.
Yes, I would say so, yeah.
I have a question for the planner. So when you're looking at this, are you looking holistically at other developments that have been approved in various stages, including Holmes Foundry, as well as properties to the south of Bridge Marina? Are those considered? That is what, 2,100 units?
Through the chair, that's the project such as the Homes Foundry is a lot larger scale development. I have to look at it by a site basis, but I also have to maintain consistency of other semis that have been developed as well.
Okay, so there's shovels in the ground currently. So there's obviously something going on in Holmes Foundry.
No, there's nothing, that's not the Holmes Foundry property.
That's separate.
That's
Yeah,
a
a
separate.
separate piece of property. There are no shovels in the ground on either of those projects, and I would say probably won't be for. If we see something in 18 months, I'd be surprised.
Okay.
But I mean, that doesn't negate your point,
Yeah.
that,
The
but I
primary
think,
plan is, 5 additional dwelling units per year. And, we have 2,100 in process.
but none being built.
No, land being cleared,
Yeah.
hurdles being built.
Could I say something? This, the property is a nice long property, it's really done a lot of depth to it, and to put what the shape that's in the plan is to put two side by sides as it is exactly the same down on Victoria Avenue, which fills up the entire front of the property, leaves the back into a nice little yard. But that's really the problem, is it's all crowded at the front, two big driveways, a flat front house, a high wall right beside each of our properties. It just, if you visually imagine that house that's down the block from us and that's planted in that property, it leaves that whole back end of the property unused, but yet it's got the front filled up. It just seems like it's doesn't make sense. You could design something that had a different layout and build it backward anyway.
Yeah, we haven't seen any plot plans for it, I think, so.
Pardon?
We have not seen a plot plan for where
Oh, I thought we. That is a one.
this plot here, but yeah. but it's-
It does mention
Yeah,
that
it's
point.
got it outlined in pictures.
Your argument is if they would have built this house 63 feet from the curb, it'd be okay, despite being as wide as it is? Is that the argument you're trying to say? Are you trying to say if this house was built as proposed, but 63 feet from the curb and not where it is, it'd be okay? Is that what you're trying to say?
Narrower and longer, I think is what she said.
Oh, okay, but it's not so much the scrunchiness of the curb, it's the
Yeah.
fact that it's
It's just built.
wide,
Makes them-
right? Regardless of where it is in relation to the sidewalk. It's the fact that it's the entire width is your problem, is that right? Okay.
that it- compared to the one down the street. It
Right.
Reminds me of that plan.
It was a corner lot, one down.
Yes.
Just sort of building on what she's saying is that I walk the streets quite a bit. I live in Point, I walk the streets quite a bit, and I noticed that a lot of the homes that have front parking this year is the vehicles that park there seem to encroach on the sidewalks. People, this driveway wants to be deep enough to hold the vehicles that are there. So people trying to walk the sidewalks, people that are impaired, visual issues or whatever, have to walk around, put themselves in danger to walk around, so. I would look at, one of the questions would be, can we deepen the driveway as well? You know, because they don't really.
That's a setback on this one.
Setback, yes. And I noticed that when a fair amount of
6 meters,
residents.
Here's the garage.
6 meters from the.
There's no setback.
Boulevard line, I believe.
I can't. Look at a visual. That's a driveway. That'd be right, part of the design.
Happens, it's like, well, it's parked here,
Yeah.
on the sidewalks.
So yeah, the setback on this drawing is 6 meters, which is the general requirement of bylaw.
Should they? Because they make.
So that's enough for one car.
Much, yeah.
Depends on the size of the vehicle.
Yeah.
Is there a representative of the builder here? The contractor
I would say no.
there?
I don't know everybody here, but it seems as though everyone is from the public.
That's unfortunate. The statement that I would make is the paragraph that's on page 12. It's, this is what I have a little bit of an issue with. It says, I'm gonna say it's about 2/3 of the way down to the page. The paragraph goes, the minor variance will allow for a minimum side yard setback of 1.2 meters for a semi-detached dwelling. The next sentence is what has me concerned. It says approval of the proposed minor variance will allow the applicant to tear down an existing single detached dwelling and construct a new semi-detached dwelling on the property. I'm not sure if allow is the right word as opposed to makes it easier. Like they could do this without the variance.
Yes,
Right? Am I right? I'm
yes, you are.
committee members. Like this allows them to make the house that they want to make wider than what our present bylaws allow.
Yeah.
And requires us to make allowances for them to make a house that they feel is more appropriate to the people that are living in it.
Yeah, I would say it could be perceived as.
I think if this is a standard paragraph that goes on every application or every application or whatever it is, I would suggest you change the word allow to make it easier. Because they could build this without us approving this. Make it narrower, make it longer.
So through the chair, if they want to go through 1.2 and they don't, you know, they're not within the one, but they want to go 1.2. And the bylaw zoning provisions doesn't allow them to for a semi, they're not allowed to construct them. Building department will not hand them a permit. Unless they meet our zoning provisions. So that's where the word allow means.
So are you trying to tell me, or am I interpreting what you're saying is to say that you cannot build a semi-detached dwelling that doesn't infringe on the 1.2?
Yes, without the need of a minor variance.
6 feet narrower?
You can't build a 6 feet narrow. You can't build a semi-detached dwelling without getting a variance.
Exactly.
You cannot. Because of the design, because of the requirements of the,
It's because of the
Safety.
requirements of the current zoning bylaw.
They can't put a house. Two-person house. On a one-person existing house.
Wait a minute, I wanna, before we get too far down this, you're asking, can a semi-detached home be built on this property? Meeting the required setbacks
required without a variance, yeah.
without a variance?
Right.
And you're saying no to that? There's no way to build a semi-detached home on this property without a minor variance?
If they build within the required side yard setback and they meet the zoning provisions, the semi-detached dwelling is a permitted use.
Right,
So if the owner decided to come in and they met all zoning provisions regarding setbacks, law coverage. They have as of right to build.
Right.
Based on provincial policy, county official plan. What I'm saying is the 1.2. Stops the allowance of the construction of a semi-detached dwelling. Because I'm going off what the information that is presented to me.
So at present, they would be breaching the bylaw if they built at 1.2. That's what they're saying.
Yes, but it'd be the same thing for a single detached dwelling. If someone came in and they wanted to build a single detached and they needed wanted side yard variance, they would be able to ask for one as well.
So he could, so if I may,
Yeah, I think something's getting missed here.
the applicant, the owner of that property could build a semi-detached home on that property the way it is. With a 3 meter setback, unless there's some other regulation within the zoning bylaw that prevents it. So is there something, there might be something that says the minimum frontage of a home, of the house itself, has to be 20 feet wide. I don't know. I'm just saying there could be another regulation. But I would say in general, a semi-detached home is an approved use in a residential zone. So if this applicant came in here today and said, I want to build a house with a 3 meter setback on each side, there'd be no public meeting.
That's right.
The permit would be issued,
No need for
You're
variance.
talking
Right.
about 3 million side yard rather than the setback.
right? I think there's a little bit of confusion and I just want to be sure. I thought Jared said there's no way to build one with 3 meter setbacks.
No, I said there was no way to build one if it didn't meet the current bylaw.
Right, okay. So I think there was a bit of confusion there.
Okay.
So if this gentleman came in here with a plan today and said, I want to build a semi-detached home, I'm gonna put 3 meter setbacks on each side, we would have to issue the permit, as long as there wasn't some other regulation that was being contravened. As long as it was below the 9 meters, the lot coverage was fine. There might be some other minuscule regulation and we would check all that stuff. But as far as the setbacks goes, it would be permitted.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Jim. But this is the third or fourth one of these that we've had a request on this.
I would say it's at least the fourth one in recent. There's 2 for Mr. Wicks.
Mhm.
There's the one on St. Clair Street. Have we dealt with the one on Alexander yet?
Yes, the one on
it's-
Alexandria
it's
was
approved.
as well.
So this would be at least the 5th one in the last
And
18
one
months.
on Victoria, now this is the second one, the third one on Victoria. Because there's one way down by Monk Street, the other side of Monk Street.
Oh, right, yes, Miss Shelley's. Yep, and then there's another one on Alexander as well. There's
Half a dozen others.
Yeah.
These places have all been granted.
I would say
side
within the
yard
last
variances?
2 or 3, not necessarily. I would have to research
They're
the
just
variances. They're definitely built. I
We're
would
just
say
describing duplexes, not houses that have had variances.
semi-detached.
Yeah.
So a duplex is one on top of the other,
Yeah,
semi-detached is side by
So
side.
we're talking about semi-detached, not houses that have had variances.
I would suggest most of them have. I would have to go back through and verify that, but I would suggest that most of them have had variances.
Part of public record.
If I might, just a moment, I recall serving on this committee for the Alexandria Avenue, and we did have a small minor variance, nothing on this scale. But I went past all of the semi-detached new construction that I knew of in the village. And they all had substantial side yards,
Yes.
which did add to the visual appeal and helping them come in. And I realized that other areas in the city of Sarnia or the province of Ontario may have 1.2 meters. But there's a big difference, in my opinion, between new constructions with a uniform 1.2 side meters and infill into a community where the houses are lower, where the side yards are established. And it just, I'm afraid that it has the potential to
Set a
become a great
precedence
big
for-
shoebox that's shoved into an itty bitty lot. That's just my concern.
Set a precedence for more and more and more.
Well, we're gonna see that request start happening more and more as well in the future. It's one that-
If I may,
Yes,
through Jim, talking about precedent, I believe precedent doesn't apply in this case, right? Like, these are individual, unique. We can't consider precedents in this case.
That's right, general, Jared, correct me if I'm wrong, but in general, you do not. Minor variance applications there is no such thing as precedent. Each one is evaluated on its own merits.
Yeah, just because we approved the other ones doesn't mean we approve this one. Is all I'm saying.
I realize that, you know, the duplex is not the issue here. A duplex can be built legally if it meets all the requirements, but what I see happening is that builders can go in now and outbid anybody who, you know, one of these older homes where you might want to tear down, builders can go in and outbid everybody if they know they're gonna get the variances on the sideline. Because essentially they're getting the property at half the price, because they're spreading out that cost of the property. So let's say if I wanted to go do it, it'd be 400 grand. And I want to build a single dwelling on it, it'd be 400,000, let's say, for the property. But if the builders know that, hey, we're gonna go in there, we're gonna get a variance, then they're getting the property for 200. And so I think we're gonna continue to see, you know, builders buying all of the lots because they can outbid somebody, and that's the really, really rich who wants to build a single home on there. So I know that's more for Point Edward, and I know it's nothing to do with the committee, but it's gonna be a challenge. Like if I was looking to buy something, I don't think I could ever outbid a builder who knows that they're gonna be able to build a duplex on there and half the lot price.
Well,
When you're
if I might.
When you're
just
actually the
address
neighbors that
that.
we want. Person that wants to buy the house, build it,
Excuse me,
either rebuild
through the
or
chair,
nice.
through the chair.
For the chair. Yeah,
Can't have side yard.
If I could just address that, yes, it does impact the committee. We're all residents here. We all have a vested interest. But we're not supposed to have an interest that would influence it. But ultimately, it is the village and we are residents and we do appreciate the fact that you people have entrusted us to make these decisions. But to be honest, I've been on the committee for a year and we've gone through several minor variances. And this is the first time where I've actually heard and appreciated public input. So if there's a case where there's a request for a minor variance and they do post the construction signs clearly just for this purpose, if I don't hear any community objection or input, then I just assume that everybody's okay with it. And so that's why this is such an important part of the process, because we all live here.
Well, it's a question. Did you want
Sure.
this duplex next to your house? If that kind of minor variance, that 1.2 meters.
Well, there's two issues there. One, I have excellent neighbors and I wouldn't want to see them go if they put up a replica of the Taj Mahal. Regardless of how, but something that close to the sideline or to the side yard, no, honestly, no. And I live in an older part of the village. I live over here.
That's a new part. That's a new part.
Sorry. It's quite often forgotten that we are a part of the village. And I've been assured by Mr. Burns that I hold the southern fortress of the village. But yeah, it's an older part. It was built in the 1950s. And we have not had any infill houses in there yet. But anything does impact the community, you know.
Well, excuse me, through you, Jerry. By looking at this, if the builder is going to build it as a one-story, that can be more acceptable than a square box going up like the one down on St. Clair Street or where else. But if they're building the two houses, you know, it's a one-story. I can find that more acceptable than a two-story straight up next to well, against your house or somebody else's house.
That's the concern I had, Gavin, as well, when I was looking at this, when we're gonna have a two-story, three-story, what are we going to have? We hadn't seen it at the time we're looking at it. So a one-story does make a better fit.
From what I heard, we can't restrict them.
Well, no, I'm not saying there, we just haven't seen it, so I don't know, so it's hard for me to make a good judgment.
It shows 7.5 meters is the height.
of the house,
Peak, yeah.
without the roof structure, so it's
That's a
it's
two-story.
not a one-story.
24 feet off there.
Raised ranch, I mean,
It's got 2 stories and maybe a base, you
that's,
know.
it's pretty nice.
So it's part of the philosophy of the village. If you want your village to change that much, and we become a village of these complexes versus single dwelling homes, it's better for the village for taxes, for sure. But is it what we want? And that's the whole thing. Where does the end come on infill that the provincial government wants every town to be changed? It's just like when Harris was a premier, every town disappeared, it became part of a bigger city. Except Point Edward. And it was one of the resistance. But, you know, it's a part of the philosophy of the province. And do we resist what they are recommending as sidebars for these properties, or do we hold with our own bylaws? And we have the bylaws in place, other bylaws that you can't transgress against. So I don't know where the answer's going with this.
Well, you strike a very good point there. It's a recommendation. Not being compelled to do these things. They do have a desire for infill housing and redevelopment. And we've got a lot of industrial sites. We have a lot of vacant property that is not living up in accordance to the highest and best use. So there's a reason why people come to Point Edward. There's a reason why people want to live
Coming here fast and furious.
Yeah.
That's the reason.
here. And
They want the nice big yards.
yeah,
They don't want to live in a box.
The last couple of years where I live, I just live over here in Arthur Street. They own my neighborhood, they've sold homes for significant asking price, tear them down and then rebuild them with single dwellings. So we know where the people are coming from, so it's the point is changing. It's gonna change, yes.
If I may, I have a question for Jim on this scenario. So that lot will need additional services. Who pays for those services?
The developer.
It's what?
There is developer surcharges now.
Well, they're required to pay the fee. Yep, it's whatever it costs to have the services put in, the developer is responsible for paying them.
Everything, the road.
Reconstruction,
everything's on.
everything is on the developer, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so through the chair, like I said before, I've looked at this. What my recommendation comes down to, based off of Bill 23. I understand your concerns for the 1.2 meters. The reason why I didn't see that, I had to sway in recommendation to the 1.2. Is the province has already put in legislation through Bill 23 in the new PPS. To allow those to have 2 additional dwelling units on their property. So these are accessory dwelling units. So either 2 in the main dwelling. Or 1 additional dwelling unit in the main dwelling and 1 outside of the dwelling. Subject to meeting setback requirements and such. If the person was permitted to have the ADUs for a single, they could go as close as 1.2 per our bylaw. And there's nothing we can do to stop that through a rezoning or an official plan amendment. So I'm just saying too, in terms of units, there is less control that the village has in regulating the amount of intensification there is on a lot. So in terms of the 1.2 for the semis, those provisions are outdated based on what the province is saying. So that's why I decided to sway in support of the 1.2, because somebody can come in on the same property and rebuild a single detached, a low density dwelling and add a detached ADU on the property and put it as close as 1.2 meters.
Now, is this law
Sorry.
actually passed, or is it in process?
So if a semi was to be approved, they would be given the exact same ability, and now you would have 6 units on that property instead of 3.
Based off of the recommendations, based off of the legislation from the province. For each unit, they would be able to have, like I said, 2, so it, based on. The conditions and the size of the lot and configuration, how many services they could handle, there's a possibility of that, yes.
If the property's severed.
If the property is separate,
So-
correct.
So on a semi-detached property. This something I've just thought of, because we were talking about, you've got each semi-detached unit. Each one could have an additional dwelling unit in the basement, and then a separate building in the backyard. But if they're not severed, you've already got 2 dwelling units, you can only have 1 more? Or how
Yeah, so if it's one lot. It's per lot, so.
Right,
You got the one, but if they separate down the middle, you
yeah,
could have up to 6.
which is astonishing, but.
I read
That's,
that in the newspaper somewhere where the province was going to pass it. That meant I could build a little house in the back of my yard. And the coverage doesn't matter. Doesn't matter whether I have any backyard at all now. My flower garden has been all old, I could have a house back there for somebody to live in.
Comment?
That's what they're
To
coming up
split a
with.
lot, wouldn't that be up to council? Whether that's allowed or not?
this committee.
Yeah,
So there are regulations in place, like there has to be minimum lot size, minimum frontage. But in general, as long as it meets those regulations, a severance application would come to this committee the same as the minor variance does.
Still, we haven't been wiped out totally yet.
Got a comment over here?
Well, it's just unfortunate that the building's not here or the owner to answer some questions, right? Because I think we've all got questions. Do you guys know? I guess you can't tell us anything more than what you. Because you've been in contact with the owner, I'm assuming?
Yes, through the chair, I've been in contact with the owners through this process and through the release of the notice. The owner was aware of the date of the meeting. Planning staff have no control whether the owner shows up.
Yeah, no.
They have the right to show up or not and make their case based off their development. I'm making my case based off the policies. I represent the policies that are in front of me.
Yeah.
But I know you guys are sharing the importance of the village. I have to look at it from a grand scope. And when you have provincial guidelines preceding village guidelines, and then you have these ADU policies coming out. For me to recommend, to deny a recommendation for a 1.2, when someone can just have an additional dwelling unit and build a 1.2. It's not consistent with what the province is putting. So for me to maintain that consistency on that end, that's where I'm going.
Just one more.
theoretically, somebody, if they're denied the 1.2, they could build a single dwelling and then split it in half and then add 2 houses on top.
If you're talking about,
Cause you said, right, you can have, you can split your dwelling into 2.
but that would be a,
The
So you're
second-
talking about-
secondary dwelling in the single family home.
yeah,
So they could build their single family home and split it for 2 families anyway.
so through the chair, if they are going to construct a new single detached dwelling, the ADUs have to be accompanied on the same lot. They can't be on a different lot.
You
But
said,
anyway,
you said it in
we're
the.
getting off the top.
Yeah, we gotta.
We need to get back onto
Give you a
this
chance in a second.
here.
Okay, guys, we're gonna move on to this here. Is there anybody here that would like to speak in favor of the application? I take that as a no. Okay, we'll move on. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in opposition to the application? And Matthew?
Yep,
Or
Matthew.
Okay, I don't know where Hughes came from. Okay, so the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Jim, do you have the presentation?
Yeah, just bring it up
Thank
here.
you.
Actually, I'm gonna bring up this one. That is Jerry's. Okay,
Go to slide 2. So my presentation centers around the official plan of the village of Point Edward. And I took snippets of that to kind of present this. So essentially, I kind of already spoke about this, but it lays out that up until 2031, we're looking to project 5 additional dwelling units a year, which I believe we are meeting, would be my understanding. The official plan is policies to ensure development applications are considered as policies as plans that the outcome of development addresses the public interest. So public interest, there's over 80 people in this village that oppose to the conversion of single family dwellings to semi-units. And the sales figures also support that there is no interest for these units. They've been on the market for nearly a year. They're empty. And in fact, they've negatively impacted the housing in this village. You took what was once occupied and you now have units that are sitting there unoccupied. So that's less people in homes because they can't afford them.
Is that because the number owns it?
The number company owns it and the price is too high. And people like myself personally, I'm a young person that would have loved to move to Point Edward, but I'm not going to spend 800 for a semi when I can get substantially nicer in Sarnia for less money. Next point is on privacy and amenity. So a variety of residential dwelling types will not be mixed indiscriminately, but will be arranged in graduations of higher density developments will complement those of lower density with sufficient spacing to maintain privacy and amenity. So 405 Victoria would be the 3rd high density unit within a 6 or 60 meter radius of my grandparents' property. So that would result in 403 being surrounded with the new proposed semi, along with the existing fourplex that is in the backyard. Along with, they also lost a lot of view when Mr. Wicks's property was put up. They call it the blue wall.
So there already is a apartment building.
Yeah, so
Side 403 Victoria in the back corner.
if you go to the next slide, you'll see it here. I highlighted this. So the blue box just. So right there, that's a fourplex apartment building. And then the next one, that's Mr. Wicks's, and then you would also be putting another one. So that'd be 3 in this little area, which seems extremely high density for a small corner of the village.
Yeah, all of it 100 meters
60 meters.
or 60.
Yeah, so another thing to look at is primary residence uses within residential areas are low density, not exceeding 20 units per hectare or 8 units per residential acre. So if we look at a residential acre, which is highlighted on the next slide here in red. If we change 405 into 2 units, that becomes 9 units on that acre instead of 8. So you would be exceeding what you've set out as your maximum. Compatibility. So in addressing the compatibility of the proposal with the area in which it is proposed, the following criteria should be reviewed to determine whether the proposal will disrupt established uses on adjacent sites or surrounding areas, create disruptive visual impressions which negatively affect the urban quality of the area, or generate activity, noise levels, or traffic levels which put undue pressure on the area and its infrastructure and other support facilities. So disruption of established uses, numerous sites with direct sight lines in the yard of 403, multiple properties located on the lot line of 403 confining the lot. And traffic levels, duplexes frequently lack sufficient parking. I believe the committee brought that up. And street parking is not allowed in the winter in this village, so that is a problem that would perpetuate itself.
Where do you come to the conclusion that duplexes have excessive parking? Where do you come back? Where do you draw those numbers from? I just want to know. You're from survey or?
Just my experience with it, and I've lived in various parts of the province, and every single time you see this, they start swarming with vehicles. You know, if kids get older, they get a car, and you've only allowed so much parking. Now it swarms out, and it just becomes a major issue.
So this isn't some sort of a.
And even in the village itself, you can. This is a. See how they have to park on an angle? They can't park their vehicles, you know, how you typically would. And they
And I'll just support you on that, because I have that in my neighborhood as well. Kids are growing, they got more cars and they're having difficulties parking the vehicles, but
yeah, it's gonna perpetuate itself. That apartment as well, does not have sufficient parking for 4 units. I believe that'd be outdated, how that was allowed, but. Yeah. Anyway, so physical character. So, development residential areas will respect the established physical character of those areas. So size and lot configuration, heights, predominant building types, setbacks from streets and lot lines. So the area is predominantly bungalows. Reducing the setbacks will make the area look more crowded, diminishing the physical character. 403 Victoria already has buildings allowed on the western lot line, so it is already surrounded on the west side. Reducing the setback from 3 meters to 1.2 will now have them surrounded on both the east and west. It does not seem reasonable. They've been taxpayers here for 50+ years. And it would seem that it would also impact the future development of their site. So as you can see here in this next slide, those garages that are highlighted are right on the property line. Which is giving them 0 meters of setback on that side. The one in the backyard is also on the lot line. So if you bring this one to the lot line, you have completely surrounded that lot. And limited their use and enjoyment of the property. So our request is that we maintain the existing 3-meter setback. Thank you.
thanks, Matt. Appreciate it, well presented, by the way. Welcome.
Thank you.
Do we have any comments, from the committee members for the present?
I do. Did you bring a copy of the petition with you?
I have that online. I could access it and get it to you guys.
Just out of curiosity, what's the latest signature count on there? I know it was 80 at the time I received the package.
Last I checked was 80.
Okay.
So I've been working quite a lot lately, so I haven't taken a look.
No, that's okay, thank you. It was very well.
When was that initiated, that petition?
That would have been less than a month ago.
So this isn't a grand striking, lifelong ambition for you to strike down duplexes, whatever, just because this particular one came.
Well, this
Right.
one had particular interest.
Right.
I
Exactly.
do have,
Right.
yeah,
I think that's what most of us do if we have.
No, I hear you. No, this isn't, you know, lifelong goal to last semi-detached or anything. This is just a.
no.
Good goal.
I don't think we're opposed to semi-detaches as such. But not all lots are created equal. And some of the semi-detached that I've seen are very nice and they fit in with the neighborhood. But my opinion, when I was at the property, this site does not really accommodate a dwelling of that nature.
Yeah.
That was just my.
Yes.
Okay. So through the chair and just to let the public know. There is I know Mr. Huggett.
Yep.
He brought up section 5.1.2, which goes over suggested low density maximums. Now, when our zoning bylaws and our official plans are written, when we're prohibiting something, like saying that something's not allowed, we use the words shall not. So this one that says the primary residential use is permitted within residential areas are low density housing types generally not exceeding 20 units per hectare. Yes, you're correct. It does go over the 8 units per residential acre. The reason planning could not enforce a zoning bylaw, an official plan amendment on that property is because it's using the words generally not. So in most cases. So there's some gray area there where we can give an exception to it.
On a very unique, not most cases, a very unique.
On a very unique case, but because it gives that gray area, I can't just prohibit that and require someone to get an OPA. In that case.
Help as a guideline.
It does help as a guideline, but it gives planning staff the flexibility to not prohibit somebody from having a semi-detached dwelling. There are other various designations in the Port Edward OP that use the terms shall not, and that prohibits the use entirely.
Okay. Is that something council can have influence on? In the future, if they were to change their regulations, they could say shall.
So I can, or, well, go ahead, Jared, sorry. Unless you,
Yeah, so like, through the chair, the village all has the right to amend their own official plans and zoning bylaw. So if they feel, if the council felt that public interest did not want semi-detached dwellings not exceeding the 8 units per residential acre and wanted to provide no flexibility, council would have to make the decision to amend that condition to say shall instead of generally. But the generally has provided planning staff to generate an opinion to give an exception to this rule based off of the new provincial policy that comes out, that came out in 2024.
Does that provincial policy have any impact on the council's ability to change that to shall?
yes, absolutely. So one thing in the provincial planning policy that's just passed, came into effect October 20th of this year, is that you shall be compliant with the provincial planning policy. So that's one of those ones, like, he's talking about permissive language and permissive versus, I can't think of it, like directive. And so the language in the provincial planning policy is you shall do this. So we're actually reviewing our zoning bylaw right now, reviewing the entire thing, which is quite an onerous process. And I hate to tell you, but these things are going to become more restrictive, not like they're going to be in opposition to what you folks are selling or not selling. I'm sorry for using that word. Advocating for, thank you, for today. And I, the provincial policy directs us that we have to do these things. So the position you're advocating for today is going to become more difficult, not less. So I won't comment on council's wishing to go one way or another. It hasn't really been discussed yet. But I can tell you, provincial planning policy is directing more towards denser residential rates and better, more intense use of infrastructure and that kind of thing. So Jared was telling me the other day, like we're talking about 1.2 meters. The province, their number is 0.9 meters. So we can pass a bylaw with 1.2 or 2.5 or whatever. The province may step in and say, no, you've got to go to 1.2. They may not.
So are they saying that on every single piece of property, you must look at increasing density, or are they just saying Village of Point Everett, you need to, have X amount of additional units? That's your problem.
Yeah, and though that's a good question that we don't really have an answer for yet. These things were just put in October and they're not,
Yes.
we're
You guys,
still working through it.
you do have proposals that would, if they do get approved, double the village. So you would far exceed any provincial standard if those go through.
The comment I would make on your picture with the density is if the gentleman at 412 Michigan Road, if you're to redraw your square and move it slightly south and incorporate 412 Michigan Road, who I know and you know who that is, but I won't mention names, but if 412 Michigan Road was to be incorporated into the square that you drew on your map, he's got a wide enough lot that he could build a 65 or whatever duplex he wants with a 3-foot side lot and still become a ninth unit inside of your square. We'd have no right to say no.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not sure if everyone's clear. We do not have the right to say no to a semi-detached home in this area. We do not. There's nothing that this council or this committee or you folks today can do to stop a semi-detached home from going there. No, there's nothing that can be done to stop it. You can stop it from going. The only thing this committee can do is stop the 1.2 meter setback request. You can, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jared, but you have the choice of saying yes to the 1.2, no to any variance or whatever. Or you can say, we'll give you, like if the committee wanted to, they could say, we'll allow you 2 meters instead of 3. Or 2, we'll give you a variance to 2 meters. We won't allow you to go to 1.2. Does the committee have that option?
Through the chair, the committee does have that option.
So So those are the three options today, either approve the 1.2, don't approve anything, or the committee could pick a number somewhere in between and say we're comfortable with 2, but we're not comfortable with 1.2.
And if we,
Does the
sorry,
committee,
and
committee
further,
have the ability
further
to?
to that, Jim,
Just-
excuse me just one moment. Further to that, if we deny this request, they'll just go to the provincial and come kick it in anyway.
They could potentially, I mean, every
We're just
decision this
delaying
committee.
the process if we turn it
It-
down.
So what's very clear is if we denied a building permit for a semi-detached, they would, like, we have no right to do that. We have nothing. If we said no to a 1.2 meter setback, it's that I would not want to give advice on that. I don't know what the Ontario Land
It's my
Tribunal would do.
impression is, since there used to be, they could appeal to the province,
They can.
but the province it's pretty well assured that the province will give them what they want.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it, yeah, I think it depends on the member, like the Ontario Land Tribunal has, there's lawyers there, there's planners, there's teachers, there's doctors. I mean, I shouldn't say there's those people, but there's a variety of people that make those decisions. And it's impossible for us to predict what they may or may not do on appeal.
Comments here.
You can count your lucky stars.
Do you have the ability to restrict height if the variance is granted?
I would say you could put that in as a condition. So if you,
Because that would be a major difference, like if you're going that close to a fence,
Yeah.
we're gonna want shorter.
yeah, I would say that that's probably, they might have grounds for appeal on that. Like if you said, okay, we'll give you a 2 meter setback, but you're only allowed to build 1 story. That is something that they might appeal and may or may not be successful.
The question over here.
They can appeal anyway, right? The 1.2, so I think the appeal to me wouldn't matter.
Jerry, you gonna say something?
Yeah, so whether committee decides today to approve or deny the application, the applicant does have the right of appeal, so if it were to be denied, it'd go through the 20-day appeal period. The applicant, if they decide to appeal, it'll be up to the land tribunal to either grant the 1.2 or not grant the 1.2, but the tribunal could also grant them 2, I guess. But we can't, planning staff and the village cannot comment on whether the tribunal will go one way or another. They look at things on a site-by-site basis as well. And that's always the risk with an appeal.
Or they could simply put the building footprint in compliance with the bylaws.
Correct.
Personally, I would not feel comfortable recommending a midway solution. And I think that the absence of the owner in the building today puts them in a bad light.
Are there any other questions from the committee?
Well, we didn't address. What is the setback? With that? What setback are they gonna have from Victoria on this piece of property?
6 meters.
I think
Yep.
it's
Here's from the boulevard line.
From the sidewalk in.
From the property line.
In their draft drawing.
That's
Yeah.
right. They're,
So-
they're not, they're giving you a footprint that shows one option. They can come in, if you grant them as long as they meet, if you give them a minor variance, they can still build up to 9 meters high.
Oh, yeah.
They can, the only thing that would change would be that setback. They could go 8 meters off the sidewalk if they wanted to. They could go, as long as they're not violating another regulation of the bylaw, they could do whatever.
I thought at one time, I don't know whether this has changed or not, but usually the setback of the community on the street. That was usually assumed to be the setback of what that building would be.
Right, so there is, the residential zone requires a 6 meter setback or conformity with whatever else is on that street. You're correct.
Just have a thought on the project. At 1.2 meters, 2 stories high would be extremely uncomfortable for the 2 people on either side of that house.
There was a comment that was in here that said that will not create negative visual impacts. And I guess I would agree with that.
Visual impact. So this is their kitchen window. This is what they see. They used to see the bridge. They now see, they call it a blue
The
wall.
blue wall.
Blue wall. That's what we call it.
Okay, move on. Any other questions? Comments? Okay, we'll move on. Is there any correspondence that's to be read?
So we had the PowerPoint presentation from Matt Huggett, which has been reviewed, and then there's a letter from Mr. Levesque.
He's here.
Would you like me to read it out for the record? Okay. Let me just make it a little bigger. I'm not in favor of granting this minor variance. It is my opinion that 1.2 meters is far too narrow for a side yard. I will outline my reasons below. I have lived in Point Edward for 47 years. I have had many good neighbors. I remember Harry Davenport as my first neighbor at 405 Victoria Street. He was a very kind man. I remember several very wonderful families who have lived at 405 since Harry's passing. I particularly remember Walter the dog, who leaped 3 steps at a time to run into my house and visit. Carlos had rented out the dwelling while he was living in Alberta. He told me that the last renters left the house in total disarray, and that was why he sold it. Why do I not favor this so-called minor variance? I would advise committee members to take a walk around the town. Ask yourselves which homes look the nicest. The ones which are crammed together, as some are, or those that have a decent side yard. A side yard of 1.2 meters just does not look good. There is barely room enough to get a ladder up to clean the walls or to make repairs. There is certainly a danger to climb a ladder if it is placed too close to the wall. The wall on this duplex will tower against my yard and put my garden and grapevines in stress. I have grown blue grapes for 15 years in the location behind my garage. I also grow, unusual for this area, blue potatoes originally given to me by my uncle from Nova Scotia. Why should I give up my precious garden so this business person can build a bigger and perhaps unattractive dwelling? There is also the matter of the beautiful sunsets, which will be blocked if this dwelling is built in the same shape as the one down the street to the west. Perhaps there is some plan which would take these concerns into effect. So far, none has been provided. Will the building look totally crammed onto the property? How will they share the lovely backyard? And it's signed Jacques Levesque. And I believe he's the resident at, sorry, your address? What's your address?
32 Alfred.
32 Alfred.
To your backyard.
That's the correspondence we received.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments? on this? I'd like to make a little statement, because I'm new to this, basically. But then I know some people don't know who I am, so I just want to explain. For those that don't know me, my name is Jim Russell. I've been a resident of Point Edward for about 40 years now. I've come to love this village of ours, so a lot of us do. And I'm on this adjustments committee. I'm also a member of the public special events committee. I'm a member of the Point Edward Service Club, and I was a volunteer for the fire department as well. We do have an elderly population in our community. According to the website, Sarnia Lambton Economic Partnership, as of 2021, Point Edward has a population of approximately 1,991 people. Of that population, those age 60 plus, there's about approximately 857 residents, so about 43% of our population is 60 and older. You want to include 50 and over, 1,137 of our residents, which is about 57% of our population is elderly. So you know where I'm going with this. Properties are going to be coming up, and things are going to be changing. So I, along with a few others in this room, we're in that grouping of 1137. And as we know, none of us like change. We get to a point where we don't like change. However, our village must continue to change to meet demands, to grow and to prosper. If we stay stagnant, then the village is actually going to die out. We have a school that we have to keep open. We have to bring people, we have to bring residents into our community. We do know that we've had a number of homes being sold and then bed and breakfasts being built. And bed and breakfasts don't bring residents into our community. Hopefully semis will, hopefully they're a reasonable price. We need a reasonable price, and comments made. We need a reasonable price for these to bring people here. We have to keep our village growing and strong. Without that, we're gonna be in difficulties. Mr. Levesque, you made up some good points, and I think we've all discussed that now about how it's going to impact a number of people that's going to do that. So what am I saying? I'm just saying that we do have to understand that there is going to be change in our village, irregardless what we like. We don't like to see change, but there is going to be change in our village. And this committee's got our work cut out for us, because we're going to see these type of requests come more and more often and more prevalent. So like Jim was saying earlier, our hands are a little bit tied in some of these situations. So whether we like it or not, the village is going to change. That's all I got to say.
If I could just underline that,
Sure.
goes back to what I mentioned, community involvement. As I mentioned, this is the first time, and I'm pleased to see everybody here and giving feedback. If something is happening that you believe in, become involved.
I totally agree. I've been on this committee now for about a year and a half, approximately, and it's basically the first time I've seen tenants like this. So it's nice to see.
The developer can change as well.
Sure can.
You know, there's no reason why you can't build within the present bylaw.
That could be a function of there being no objections for any of the minor variances by the impacted parties before. That's why community involvement is key. That's the other thing that people feel it's growing is care and
Yeah.
involvement.
We need caring and thoughtful citizens like you guys. You need it. Like, I love to see this. I know, and there's a few other things that I've involved in. We didn't get people coming out and fighting for them and speaking their concerns, which was sort of depressing. But this is great. We all like to see. Thank you. Yes.
I guess my biggest eye opener today was that building isn't here.
Yeah.
And to me, when you're talking about that ownership, care, community, you know, they're hiding behind the face of the planner. And to me, like, why not come here and talk to us, and so we can understand or figure out, is there a way we can come together? You know, like embrace the community and work on it. And it's that speaks volumes to me. So it's just some thought.
Thank you. Colin.
Because we have had interested parties appear via Skype or FaceTime or whatever it is. You're absolutely right. Even if they're 100 miles away, even if they're busy, if you're that concerned, they can always attend on a video thing. And you're right, we are hiding behind Jerry. Behind you. They would be here.
Jared has a comment.
So through the chair, in terms of this application, applicant came forward with the minor variance for 1.2 meters. And then he can come to me and ask for it. At the end of the day, I make my recommendation based off the policy in front of me. And as Jim has stated, it keeps the village's hands tied, especially with their zoning bylaws, when the province is hammering down this residential intensification and using words such as shall and pushing in and pushing in. And as planners, we have to look at the long term of these applications if they were to be appealed. And we have to stand up there and we have to defend our policies. So at the end of the day, I had to be on the fence. I was on the fence on this. I swayed towards the support because I'd be questioned on a lot of provincial policy if I went against this. And I have to be on the right side of things in terms of that. So just to be clear, just as a member of public service and, you know, a municipal planner as well as a county planner, I do not represent applicants, I represent the policies that are in front of me and then make my best judgment based off of those policies. And look at it from a side-by-side basis, but because of the, you know, the new 2024 provincial policy statement. And the intensification policies and the pressure it's put on municipalities, I had to go that way. So just as everyone understands that, that's all I want to be clear on that.
And that's understood. We understand that you do not advocate on either side. You present it as the law states, as you see it. And
That's
that's
our,
how you do it.
that's your.
But you just happen to be the lightning rod here today. If you had the developers here, we would have had a hoolie that you could have sat back and just had the popcorn and enjoyed yourself.
Somebody's the sounding.
I think the biggest thing for me is the developer should have been here. And see, he's not here. I don't know.
It
It doesn't set right.
Either.
I mean,
He doesn't shovel the snow either.
well, it's not even that. In my book, we've had others here and the developer's been here. And they've presented their case. Fine, but this one, I don't know. It gives me a bad feeling. Is he hiding from us? Does he not want to abide by the village bylaws that we have or the county bylaws or anybody? Is he just gonna come in and do willy-nilly?
Just
I
a
don't know.
business adventure,
Well,
just a business adventure.
That's exactly.
it also comes down to the point that there are people here that feel negative toward the application.
Right.
I've personally submitted an application for the exact same variance that's been asked for here, the easement to the side, not the semi-detached. I came here because I was a contractor. Nobody else showed up. My neighbors didn't show up. Nobody cared. Nobody cared that I built it. And I have a monolithic house that you want beside your house now, but I showed up. Nobody else was against mine.
Mhm.
And across the road from me, where there are houses that are literally, you can't see apart from them, they've
Yeah.
all applied for variances where we are. I think on the face, quite honestly, this committee has one question to look at. Do we agree or not agree that a semi-detached can be built 1.2 meters from the lot line? But in this case, we have people here who don't feel it should be. That's
Right.
the difference.
That's
I built one where nobody had a question for it and it was built. My lot line is from here to here. Nobody questioned it.
I thought we agreed to it, it wasn't the semi-detached, that was the problem.
No, I agree. I said my exact same variance is this. My house is 1.2 meters from my lot line. Nobody said a word. So
You
That's
live
what-
in it,
Did you get
That-
that?
too. You live in it too, though,
Single family, right?
right?
but
I
not,
wouldn't care if my neighbor wanted it, if it was my neighbor that wanted it.
I hear you. That's exactly. That's that. Here we don't, right? So that's, I agree.
Yes. No, I think- Do we have any further comments? Before
2000.
this off? Yes.
I just want to say thanks for your patience and listening to us.
Well,
Here and
thank you
now.
for showing up.
No, I know.
We didn't know what to expect today either, so. Yeah, but thank you very much. Gavin, you're gonna say something?
I just gotta say.
I see your hand go
I've
up, so I
been on
just-
this committee for 21 years. And this is the biggest crowd
Mhm.
outside of, well, that wasn't even, that was property standards that we had. Complain about swimming pool. But, yeah, the public has to get involved. I've had suspicions about these pieces of property, but we've been granting them. When the neighbors come out, the neighbor, next door neighbor comes, and the owner comes and they want to build this place, it's pretty hard to turn them down. Because they are in agreement with what should be there. And if they don't come out and disagree, or don't send in a correspondence, then you have to assume that they're accepting it. Right. There. And you guys have made it awful hard today.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Matt for the presentation. Thank you, very appreciate that. And for Mr. Lebec for this. No, thank you very much. One last time, any other questions, any comments? Thank you. Are we ready to make a decision?
I'm not gonna make the motion this time anyway.
This is tough, this is difficult. Are we ready to make a decision?
Well, I'll make a motion that the committee deny the application.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
All in favor?
So I just need to read out that. About, you
Sure.
yeah.
Okay, so. Appeals. Okay, so I have to read out the repeal things. And thanks for bearing with me. This is the first time Cindy has.
Let them do it for an easy.
You gave me the easy one. Appeals may be made to the local planning appeal. Let's start again.
Let's be done.
Appeals may be made to the local planning appeal tribunal against the decision of this committee within the prescribed timeframe. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the committee of adjustment in respect to the proposed minor variance, you must provide a written request. That's it?
Yep.
You gotta take a stand. No issues.
Is there any new business to bring up?
I have nothing.
I have nothing. Anybody have anybody? Committee? Can I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
No.
Very quick.
Okay,
Can I have a
just
seconder?
don't leave because I'll print this decision off and
Okay, a seconder, okay. All in favor?
get you to sign it.
Motion carried. Thank you, everyone, for